Shit. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. All right, everybody. 11 to 12 points. It's 13 points, unfortunate. It's not 15. It's not 15. Oh, it's 12? Oh, yeah, it's 12. It's 12. My bad. It's 12. I made the cutoff. All right. I apologize. Yeah, and June's coming up, technically. Fortunately. All right. Let's pull stuff up. I feel like I should be given some slack because this setup is completely different, you know? Dealing with a completely different setup here. That really changes things. Also, okay, hold on. Let me pull up the late points first. Let's pull up late points. All right. Okay. Give me a second here. Okay, I feel like with this setup, it's going to show... Okay, it's good. Yeah, it's showing all the right stuff. Okay, cool. So, late points. Let's add another 12. Maybe it's time we start talking about some new penalties. Because I don't know how excited you guys are about these penalties that we currently have. You know? Okay, yeah, my monitor's on the wrong side as well for me. But that's okay, you know. I can deal with it. I gotta reassemble things. So at the moment, I'm making the setup just similar to the previous setup, but just for ease. But I don't want to. I might want to do something different down the line. Morge lazily remaking the previous setup is perfectly on brand. Oh my god! Look, it's just so I gotta have something. No. Yeah. But I do want to do a better setup down the line. All right. Where's the In Defense of Wanyo? It's been like 4 to 5 months now. It hasn't been... I think it's been close to 4 to 5 months. I had 6 months to do it. So if you see the document, I have to do it by June 5th. I'm staring at the posters right now. How do I get them? What a phenomenal question, especially because genuinely, it's pretty much end of the line. If you want the Loki poster, that's it. It's over. You can only get the Loki poster now, and then it's gone. All right. So at this moment in time, you can buy 2 get 3 any posters. So all posters are available for buy 2 get 3. But specifically, we've got all these new character posters, and the Loki poster is gone after March. So you can buy 2 get 3 of any posters, including past island posters, ships posters, all of that. It's really just the Loki poster that disappears, but you can mix and match. If you want 1 character, 2 ships, 2 islands, or 2 islands, 3 characters, whatever you want to do the combination of, you can get basically 5 posters for the price of 2. Loki disappears after this month, so make sure that you get your hands on it while you can. Let me just share it with the good people of this stream right now. This looks amazing. It is amazing. Oh my god. How did Casey... Hold on. Casey, what the heck? Sorry, I just had to put one of my dogs out. Anyway. Mord, you're gonna make a stream or video at the end of Chainsaw Man because I need an outlet. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think I want to do that. It almost makes me want to do a video on Fire Punch. I feel like now would be as good a time as any to do a video on Fire Punch and be like, hey, if you're disappointed by that, go read this manga, which has a phenomenal ending. It's a similar style of ending, but Fire Punch does it actually right, in my opinion. Yeah. I can't wait for your excuses on Friday, June 5th, why the Wano analysis hasn't come out yet. No. We're not going to talk about that. Please do the Fire Punch video, Morge. I would really like to do that. Fire Punch analysis before Wano analysis. Oh, I still miss the Chainsaw Man Part 1 analysis. That was one of my best videos. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick. Let's talk about this. You should do a video on Fire Punch like your Chainsaw Man video on Manga Morge, not to send you into a spiral. Yeah, I think it'd be fun to experiment with. I haven't done a video on not One Piece in so long. Oh, I'm missing a super from Tiptio. Look at last year's Final Villain stream to review the debate. So that is a good idea, and this is just gonna be an ongoing debate in One Piece. But here's the tricky thing. The catch here is that I have been alerted to the existence of certain spoilers that are not, they seem to be hints more than, I've checked them out. They're not hard spoilers. They're not even like the Reef spoilers. They're hints at the spoilers. They're hints at the future spoilers. They're hints at the future spoilers. It's like, who all has checked out the hints at the future spoilers? Don't go check it out. All right. Why is a good manga ending hard to find now? Because manga are like generally serialized. Yeah, they sound insane. Not gonna lie. Don't go check them out, but they do. Without spoiling you guys, but those spoilers in and of themselves would make almost like next week's stream a much better time to do a final villain stream, is the tricky thing. So I'm caught between like, do we bump this topic a little bit and then talk about something else? Because I do want to talk about this. It's just difficult with, it's almost like next chapter will give us so much more to work with. But I'm happy to still do this. As for the manga endings thing, the simple reason that most anime and manga don't have good endings is Chainsaw Man does not fall into this category. I'll explain Chainsaw Man separately. But the simple reason that most anime and manga struggle to do endings well is because when you're a mangaka, right, like you're trying to get published in the magazine, you're trying to get published in Shonen Jump, right? So what you're doing is it's the same as like TV shows that aim to first get their pilot off the air, like first get like the okay from a studio, right? Like it's anything that's long running is gonna have a totally different approach to the ending than anything that's more self-contained, like a movie. Like a movie, you get it all in one go, right? Like a book, you get it all in one go. If you're doing a series, maybe that's different, but for anything like TV shows or manga, things where you need a really hot start, right, to get the okay to even be allowed to go forward, right? Generally, a lot of the best ideas, you probably have a really strong blueprint and framework thought out of like your first 100-something chapters. You've probably really, really thought that out because you're fighting to compete with all these other guys, right? You don't know how long you're going to be syndicated for. Like, you don't know how long you're going to be published for, right? You don't know, right? You probably have an ending in mind, but what happens is, let's say you get published. Same as a TV show, you get the green light. Oh, we get to make a TV show of this thing, right? Now your number one goal is you just want to make season 1 phenomenal, right? Because you want to be re-up for season 2. Same thing with manga, right? You just need to get through your first, like Oda's even talked about it. He said that he needed the first 20 chapters of One Piece. He was like, I need something really exciting before the end of the first 20 chapters because that'll be like my first milestone of like, am I going to get to stay in Shonen Jump or not? I guess it was like the buggy fight or something, but by whatever Oda logic, he hit that mark, obviously. By most other manga standards, that's not the most exciting thing, but One Piece, slow and steady wins the race, right? But even Oda is thinking like that, right? Even Oda, who planned out his ending for so long back, right? So, essentially what happens is obviously you're front loading as many of your good ideas as possible, because the dream of creating like a gigantic story exactly how you like, that's just the dream. Which you really need is to like get in the race in the first place, right? So a lot of times, and this is also the period of time that you're not having to do weekly writing, right? So you have so much time to think and plan and sit back, right? Kind of like Tagashi's getting to do right now, right? You just got time on your hands, right? And then you put your series out there, and you've probably got so many great ideas for the first chunk of it. And you probably do have an idea of the ending. But like there is a transition period where now a lot of the ideas that you had early on that got you published in the first place, you're starting to pass through that section of the story, and you probably have not spent like as much time thinking about the middle section, and you probably don't have all the details of the end planned out. Or if you do have details in the end planned out, what's probably happened is that as the story's gone on, things have been going well and new ideas have come up, so you've started planting in more things, like more plot threads and such, right? But you probably haven't thought of exactly that, like, how is that going to work with the ending that I've created? So this is a very common problem you see, which is too many plot threads are created because writers get excited. I mean, this happens to, like, fantasy authors like George R.R. Martin, right? You've got a really strong beginning. You probably have a semblance of an ending in mind. As the story's going, now you're really on a roll. You've got freedom to do what you want, so new ideas are flooding in. It's easy to plant new plot threads and new character threads and things like that, but it's hard to then take this blooming mass and then like consolidate everything to bring it all together at a pace that works well, cohesively, like tie everything together in a manner that's satisfactory for everything that you've set up. Because the more you set up, the more you have to knock down, right? And the more you have to knock down while still adhering to an ending that makes sense with the beginning of your story, right? So that's just why it's difficult, because they're not getting time, right? So once you're in the weekly flow of writing, that's it. Like, you got to focus on making every single chapter as exciting as possible. But that doesn't necessarily, so like that can include introducing new character threads or big twists and stuff like that in mind just to stay in publication, when you don't necessarily have it planned out how each of these new things you're introducing is going to resolve in a manner that's consistent with what you initially planned, right? So it's just again, that's why someone like Tagashi's on such a fantastic run right now, because he's getting to sit back, take a year, plan out a set of 20 chapters, and in doing so, he can make everything coherent, right? He can think about, how's this set of 20 chapters working with what I'm heading towards. Like, he's probably got a ton of diagrams and character maps and everything like that, and all of that thought out, right? So I trust that the boat arc that Hunter x Hunter is in is probably going to resolve cleanly, okay? Whereas most mangaka are going to struggle with that. I think that's one of Oda's biggest strengths, if not his biggest strength, period, is that despite being weekly and not taking breaks like a lot of other mangaka, I mean, he takes his, once a month break or whatever, but like not like 20 week or half a year or year-long breaks, right? Despite Oda not doing that, he still seems to somehow be able to create lots of threads and still have a clear ending in mind where it all ties together. I think Oda's not as good at doing this on an arc-to-arc basis, like Wano was a mess, but overall it seems like he's got a handle on everything. So, all that being said, I think that explains why generally long-running manga struggle with endings. That's why you have some authors like Kubo coming in to do a redo. That's why you have like really great series that were once like King of the Hill, like Naruto, struggling with their ending at the end of 700 chapters. I think that's why shorter series like A Full Metal Alchemist tend to have cleaner endings, because they had it planned out further in it. Like, they have less of a just burgeoning story to deal with, right? I think that's also why Good Hopes for some series that are just on the shorter end. to do well, and I think that manga are kind of trending towards shorter run times now than like what One Piece, Bleach, and Naruto are heading towards. Like Kagurabachi, I think, has a clear narrative structure and end in mind. So all of that being said, let's talk about Chainsaw Man really quick, which is Chainsaw Man. Everything I just said does not apply to Chainsaw Man. Doesn't apply to Chainsaw Man because with Chainsaw Man Part 1 is perfectly planned. It's the perfectly planned story. Nothing is wasted. Everything works together. All the thematic ideas develop perfectly. All the characters, their plot lines play out exactly as they're meant to. All the beats of the plot are like so tightly written. It's phenomenal. Chainsaw Man Part 2 is where Fujimoto reveals that he tricked us and that he just wrote Part 1 as such a tight, well thought out story so that he could get successful and mainstream popular and then do whatever the fuck he wanted in Chainsaw Man Part 2. He probably always had this ending in mind, but I don't think he gave a fuck how he got there. Because if you just look at some of Fujimoto's shorts, if you look at Fire Punch and stuff, he kind of likes saying screw you to the reader in some ways. He just did it the right way with Chainsaw Man Part 1 and really planned everything out. I think Chainsaw Man Part 2, he did seem to plan out a good amount of it, but at the end, it's almost like it's like an all roads lead to Rome situation where it's like, even if he planned it out, he was always going to drive the car off a ditch at the end, no matter what he'd set up. Like, he was always down to do that. His ending for Part 2 is not a result of, like, running out of time or not knowing what to do with all the plot threads or, like, poor planning or any of that. He clearly always wanted this for Chainsaw Man and Denji's story, and he just did not give a fuck what he tore down to get there, basically. So that's why Fujimoto I put in a separate category, which is just like, man, fuck you, man. And that's because he's saying fuck you to us. Again, Fire Punch, I would recommend people go check that out because he does something similar there, but it works a lot better with the narrative that he's written and the ideas behind it. Anyway, that's... I hope that makes sense. Let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Julian Reed, sorry, I think your message is redacted. Julian Reed, sorry, the next one. Thanks for the 5. This is my first time avoiding spoilers before a chapter since God Valley. The leakers haven't done this much gassing since Gear 5th. Yeah, it's crazy when we're getting this stuff on Monday as well, you know? Like, I'm used to us at least being able to discuss stuff on stream without... I'm just used to us being able to discuss stuff on stream without having to worry about that. Eric, what's up, man? Thanks for the 5. Just do the simple / clean ending. Don't try and reinvent the wheel with some nonsense ending. Just land the plane the way the fans want. I mean, you can say that, but then that just gets hard with, like, so many plot points for lots of series. Again, this doesn't apply to Chainsaw Man because Fujimoto already did it that way once with Part 1. Actually, Part 1 has a very unique ending, but it gives most readers everything that they want. It's really good. Like, things that it's usually better to give readers what they didn't know they wanted, so you want to impress them with the ending. So Chainsaw Man Part 1 it's a very out-of-the-box direction that the story goes, but it's still very satisfying, right? Just not in a way anyone could have predicted. Something like Fire Punch is totally out of left field as an ending, but in doing so, it creates a more elevated piece of art, you would say, right? Much more unique. No other manga like it, and it pulls off its concept perfectly, right? Chainsaw Man Part 2 is just like, he just did that for himself. He just did that for himself. Lots of other manga, you could say, like, just do the simple and clean ending and land the plane the way that fans want. Don't reinvent the wheel. And that's true, but lots of times it can be hard to land the plane even in a simple way. Like, I think Demon Slayer, from the ending that I've read of Demon Slayer, like, there's nothing crazy about Demon Slayer's plot at the end that's like, oh my god, this went totally insane. But it's generally not viewed as, like, anything special as an ending. And I imagine the anime is going to totally tune that up with its emotion, production, etc. Because the anime has generally elevated Demon Slayer into a totally different beast. But yeah, sometimes doing something too simple and generic is boring, and then other cases you've just set up too much that you can't actually land a plane cleanly and easily. So there's like a full spectrum. Anime Dimension, thanks for the 10. I agree it's better to talk next week about Final Villain and change the topic to Final War matchups, world government and bad Marines and bad Kings versus pirates and revolutionaries and good Marines, etc. The thing is, I feel like that becomes really hard. That's hard because I think I need to see what happens this next chapter to understand some things, without spoiling, to understand some things like what's going on with Emu. Like, is Emu saved for some other team effort? Is it a Luffy thing? Like, what's going on? Because then that allows us to allocate other characters and matchups, right? Like, what's Dragon Up going to be up to? All of that. It's also difficult because I think that there's still some elements of the story that Oda's keeping from us. Is there actually going to be a Serpent of Hellfire, right? If that's the case, cool. Loki's fighting that. If there's not actually going to be a Serpent of Hellfire, then we're now scanning our existing characters. I don't think there's any Gorosei that's strong enough to fight Loki, even remotely close. I mean, Garling was out there getting like low diff by rocks. And I think Garling might be the best the Gorosei have, either him or Warkiri. Maybe Shamrock for Loki because they've got personal beef, but then it's like, well, what about Shamrock for Shanks? You know, so like, until we figure out certain things, it's really hard to do a final matchups situation. And then the other thing with final matchups is that the Marines are the trickiest thing to determine because you don't know where the Marines are going to fall. I think some, like Fujitora, are guaranteed not going to be like a bad guy Marine at the end. But then Kizaru, it's like, he's a curious case. Where is he going to land, right? Akainu, similar. I think Akainu is going to be an opponent no matter what, but is he going to be on the... is he going to be third party? Or is he picking... Like, is he going to help the Revolution or help the Celestial Dragons, right? Because based on what we know of Akainu's code, he's not down with either of those things. But will he stick by these Celestial Dragons? Will he decide that these guys are worse? Like, are we heading for like a character thing and he shifts over to the Revolution? I find that unlikely as well. Or, I mean, if Oda pulls it off with really good character writing, it could be cool. Or is Akainu going to go full third party, military coup, fuck the Celestial Dragons, I'm going to establish my way of justice. Good setup for some Conquerors hockey storyline there as well. That's why I think it's really hard. I think it's easier to debate final villain because there's only two options than debating all final matchups because I think we're still potentially waiting on we need a few things. Oh, and the last thing with the Marines that's difficult is Dami Reversi is an option, and I guess this applies to characters even beyond the Marines, which is just like, now that Dami Reversi is a thing, there are so many potential matchup situations because, you know, like a character, like let's say Kizaru defects from the Marines and he's like, you know what, I'm going to be a good guy. What if Imu Dami Reversi's him? So then now we're back to Kizaru on the villain side, right? It applies to so many characters, you know? Aokiji, I think, wouldn't be on the Celestial Dragon side, but what if, like, I'm just throwing out characters as examples, right? Oda can Dami Reversi whoever he wants to make a villain, you know? Or a good guy villain. So I think figuring out the general slew of matchups is really hard right now. Emu and Blackbeard should be easier because there's just two options, you know? But I think the pendulum's just swinging back and forth every chapter, which is really cool on Oda's part because I think either one of them would work well as final villains. My heart is now set on Blackbeard, but I'm open to being, you know, pulled away by Emu, you know, depending on what he shows. But I would really love for I think Blackbeard is a really cool final villain, but I don't want to say anything about next chapter. I'm very curious, you know? Cadmus Monkey, thanks for the 5. Next Monday is way better for this convo because spoilers are insane this week and may change your perspective, and spoilers aren't even April Fools too. Yeah, the fact that people are having to clarify that spoilers aren't even April Fools is like crazy. Okay, so we can do this next week. But I still want to do a stream today, so we can do some fun topics instead. Elijah Petty, thanks for the 2. It's not even a debate. Blackbeard will be the last villain. I felt, you know, I'd say... For a long time, I went back and forth, so I was closer to the 50-50. I think I've been shifting more to the 70-30 with Blackbeard being final villain as of late. But it sounds like there's recent events that could suggest that, or upcoming events that could shift things, not just for myself, but for other people as well. Deptia Treviso, thanks for the 5-man. Even if Emu's Zoan or true form is like clearly the scariest villain reveal, it would just hype the fruit and not Emu himself, just holding on to straws. Yeah, because, I mean, the argument is always that Blackbeard can take that fruit, right? I totally get that. Tom, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 42 months. Why can't you re-upload the Chainsaw Man video with the flagged images? Flagged and replaced. Sorry if this is a dumb question, but I don't get it. Kaiji, I'm begging. Oh, man, Kaiji. I'm supposed to read Kingdom next. The simple reason is I don't want to... right now, I'm a One Piece YouTuber, right? To try to make the shift to... Like, a part of it is just like, what is the broader purpose, right? So with Manga Morge, initially I was stepping into the field of covering other series. And what I found right away was basically it is very, very time intensive to cover One Piece the way that I've been covering One Piece. And I don't want to drop the quality of that. And also do dedicated analysis type videos for other series. Okay? So that was what I felt initially, and then the Chainsaw Man video's growth being killed early on also played into that, because like I was experiencing a lot of stress while trying to manage both channels, and then that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, which was just like, okay, I'm not going to be able to put out a video of that size and effort for a little bit for Manga Morge. It's going to take me like at least a couple months to do that again. And I was just like, okay, I think I need to take a mental break from this, and then I stepped back and reevaluated and was like, I would rather keep doing One Piece well than try splitting into other manga, at least until One Piece is coming to a close. So that's what I felt at the time. So right now, what my heart would like to do is delve into other series. Like right now, like there's spurts where I'm excited about talking about another series. I'm like, I want to talk about Fire Punch. I want to talk about the Chains. I don't actually want to talk about the Chainsaw Man Part 2 ending, because I think that there's lots of cases where it's like, okay, I didn't like this, but let me read back through, and I think once I understand thematically everything in a more in-depth way, maybe I can appreciate it. I don't think that'll be the case with Chainsaw Man Part 2, because it's not a themes or messaging thing. It's just like my care for the characters, etc., and there's other aspects of the story that just won't be changed. So I don't actually want to talk about Chainsaw Man Part 2, but I'd be happy to talk about Chainsaw Man in general and Fire Punch. So the question is basically like, purpose, right? Because all of these things take time. So I could just change the Chainsaw Man video, re-upload it, maybe on the main Morge channel, right? That's question number one. Is it going on the main Morge channel, or are we trying again on Manga Morge? If we're trying on Manga Morge, what is the end goal? Is the end goal that I have two channels that I'm really focused on, or because I tried that before and I find that difficult, right? If I upload the Chainsaw Man video on the Morge channel, one, I think it would struggle because I think a lot of people have seen that video already, but there's a good chunk of people, I'm sure, who haven't, right? So I could do that, and then the question is, where do we go from there? If the video does well, am I now trying to branch out? I don't know if I want to try and turn the Morge channel into more than a One Piece channel. So there's a lot of questions that come with it, because I don't want to do it just to do it, if that makes sense. People who want to see the video can go watch the video. It's obviously still up on the Manga Morge channel. But I don't want to take a big swing at working on Chainsaw Man or Fire Punch or something like that if the broader goal is not to actually expand the scope of the Morge channel, if that makes sense. It could be a good test, so that's something I could consider. It's definitely something I could consider. Maybe I could do it. I don't know. Maybe I could do it just to see. You got me thinking, but it's just potentially stepping into a big time investment. It's something to consider. Let me actually, you know what? The bigger problem is like a lot of it's passion, right? So right now, in this moment, I want to talk about Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch. Not really Part 2, maybe touch on Part 2's ending, but really I want to talk about Chainsaw Man Part 1 and Fire Punch, okay? Those are the two things that I want to talk about. But that's just because I feel excited about that right now. Week to week, month to month, the only series that I'm generally, like, generally consistently excited to talk about is One Piece. Like when I finished Kagurabachi, I was excited. So I was like, I want to, or finish, I'm not, finish the section of Kagurabachi that you guys, if you are Kagurabachi readers, you know what I'm meaning. When I finished, let's say, a certain large segment of Kagurabachi, I really wanted to talk about Kagurabachi, right? But that's fleeting in the sense that because I'm excited about the series right now, I want to make a video about it right now. But it's not like I want to weekly cover Kagurabachi or consistently cover that. So that's the other thing to consider, which is just like, do I want to become a channel that is like doing mainly One Piece stuff, but then once in a blue moon I do something that's not One Piece? Because that's not a great recipe, because then the algorithm doesn't really favor that. If you want to diversify, you got to diversify hard and step into diversifying. So that's just the things that I've considered in the past, you know? I can think about it again, because I'm like, well, re-uploading the Chainsaw Man video with flagged images replaced, that's like the simplest sort of test that I could do with minimal effort on my part and see how it goes over. But re-uploading the same thing, I don't know. I don't know. But thanks for bringing that up. I'm going to make a little note to myself. Okay. Aryandhal, thanks for the 2. Do you think Oda's still tying up loose ends for ending? I think that Oda is going to do a really good job tying up most loose ends. I think the biggest thing that made me feel confident in that is, I think where he didn't do a good job is in storylines like Wano, because I'm using Wano as the big example, but that's because it's a storyline where it's trying to cover a million things, right? The difference is that with Wano, it's clear that like a lot of stuff is new to the arc that he's coming up with. Like he's even shown in rough drafts and stuff like that, he didn't have the concept of 9 scabbards. He just slowly came up with that. It was supposed to be 4, yada yada. What I'm seeing since post Wano, so over the course of Egghead and Elbaf, is that now that we're in the final saga, it's clear that Oda is a guy who has always been thinking about his ending, where I feel like every long-running character that we've had in the story is having a storyline set up for them that clearly has an arc or destination, right? So if you look in Egghead, the fact that he was bringing together the long-running storylines of Kuma that we've had so many questions about, and Bonnie, and Vegapunk all together so well, even Kizaru. Like, I never thought that Kizaru is a character in One Piece who is supposed to have character depth. I thought he was always just supposed to be a tool for the world government. But Oda had been planning for all of this for them, and fucking Sentomaru, since all the way back in Sabaody. So that's a little example there. We see where the Kobe, Garp, and Aokiji, all of their storylines and their narratives actually tying together beautifully at Hachinosu. That's amazing storytelling as well, right? You can see a lot of these threads that are just showing up in Egghead and in Elbaf of like fucking Hajrudin, you know, and like his giant warrior pirates, like Dory and Brogy. Everything's flowing together really well, where what it seems like is every long-running plot thread and long-running character in One Piece, all of those side characters, he does have a place in mind for what is supposed to happen with them over the course of the final saga. And that's something that I think is very different from what we see in like something like a Naruto or something like that. Yeah, we can do a poll to figure out what we're doing here. Anime Dimension, thanks for the 5 in this stream. Anime Dimension, thanks for the 5. We can take into consideration Yonko commanders or Yonko level or above character matchups only. We could do that, but even then it's just like, I want a little bit more. I want a little bit more information, because it's just, again, does a Serpent of Hellfire exist or not? You know, is there some more stuff to be unearthed here? We didn't even know Loki was a character that we would have to plan matchups for like a year ago, You know, like you go back 1 year and like, you know what I mean? I want to at least finish out Elbaf before we really get into detail about Final War matchups. Because in this arc alone, Oda's dropped some crazy new matchups for us. Like, if you went back, a lot of people were like, look at Vegapunk's speech. Vegapunk's speech showed us right away all the major players of this final war or whatever. We can plan out matchups. No, like, Loki, who seems like he's set to be top 5-ish most important characters on the good guys side, right? Maybe give or take. Maybe up there with Luffy. Probably that's a bit, I don't know. We can't gauge him too much in terms of significance just yet, but clearly he's like in the fucking mural, right? Legendary character, parallel to Nika, yada yada. Huge part of Nika's destiny. We didn't even know he existed last January. I think that might be right. Like, I think if you go back 1 year and a little bit, I don't think that we even knew Loki existed, right? Shamrock. Confirmation that Shamrock is real. That's potentially a huge game changer in terms of Final War matchups, and we just learned about that, right? Stuff like Davy Jones. We didn't know that Davy Jones, whether or not Davy Jones shows up or is just whatever, right? Just the fact that it's confirmed that Davy Jones was once a really important, significant character, that's something that we learned this year. So many things, like even the notion that there might actually be a giant serpent, that's new, you know? To be fair to Oda, it's not like Loki's a new character. You're right. I'm unfairly framing that. I guess what I mean is I want to get a better idea of who our roster of major characters is before we start doing the matchups. Because matching up like a shit ton of characters on the world government side to a shit ton of characters on the good guys side, even if you control for just Yonko commander level characters and up, it's really hard. Yeah. Also, let's get the stream likes up to 100 real quick. Reverend, thanks to the 5. Man marked by flames being the giant serpent fire breathing from the mural. Oh, that'd be insane. Considering the X marks on the serpent's head, creates whirlpools, and works for the world government. I have no idea who the fuck that guy would be then. Just this crazy, mysterious, like... That'd be like a guy we've literally never heard of, you know? That, I don't know. That'd be insane. Powerful NL, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 35 months. Heads up, Pirate King podcast submissions just went up. I think they just went up. So if you are a Pirate King member, then definitely go head over and get your submission in for the Pirate King podcast. For those of you who don't know, Pirate King podcast is a once a month podcast that I do for the top tier Patreon members and YouTube members, where every Pirate King tier member can submit a question, and I can answer it in far greater detail than I would on stream, and the questions can be a lot more broad ranging, so not just One Piece, but other movies, TV shows, anime, manga, video games, all of that stuff. Feel free to ask that there, and I give it a lot more time than I'm able to do in streams, just because it's a free flow podcast. So yeah, if you're interested, then definitely go check that out. And yeah, you get access to all the previous podcasts as well. So Powerful NL, thank you for the long time support. Mr. Morhito, do you think Blackbeard could get a fake-out defeat before the Emu fight just to appear and steal Emu's powers after Luffy defeats Emu, and then have the final fight with him at full power? So here's one thing that I think that's very possible. One thing that I've thought about that's possible is like, no, I don't want to get... I think that Blackbeard could get fake-out defeated, but not necessarily by Luffy. I do wonder if it's possible that like we see him get a fake out defeat and then Blackbeard comes steal the show. There's some I don't want to talk about this in too much detail here because it might just be too out there. But and it would require probably a video to break down. I think it's possible. I wonder if actually the Shanks and the red-haired pirates actually seemingly take out the Blackbeard pirates. Only for it to later on turn out that they were a little bit premature. And then the Blackbeard comes by surprise to steal the show. Because I think that's where Blackbeard's best. used, stealing the show. Surprise. If Emu touches Blackbeard, the Yami Yami will instantly kill Emu. Oh, that'd be interesting. Can't wait to watch a reaction to Smile 2 after the stream. The first Smile movie was really, really good. Like, genuinely terrifying. Genuinely, like, really scary from start to finish. I think it's the most memorable horror movie that I've seen in a long time. There was also one more. I think Talk to Me. That's a really good one. Talk to Me is a really good one. Really good use of music. But I'd say Smile was a really, really strong horror movie. Just very memorable in a lot of different ways. And the concept is really scary all the way through. And remains scary at the end. Smile 2, we ended up not watching. And then I got impatient about watching that. And then I think I just Googled the ending. And then I saw the clip of the ending. So it looks like it's really good. It's just that... yeah, it looks like it's really good. It's just I kind of know the way that it plays out, Weapons is also good. Yeah, Weapons is okay. Weapons is good. It's real good. I think Weapons is pretty overrated though. I was just surprised because look, I think it's really good. How do I say this? I don't even think it's really good. I think it's good. I think I was surprised by... I'm not sure why it got so much traction. Because you gotta understand, I went in like really excited about Weapons because Zach Kreger is like my favorite comedy sketch group growing up is Whitest Kids You Know. Like, I love everything Whitest Kids You Know. I think I've watched pretty much every sketch that they've ever done. They're my favorite comedy group ever. Okay, maybe them or Jake and Amir. I don't know. It's different strengths. Okay, Zach Kreger, one of the main members of the group. I would say probably second most prominent member after Trevor Moore. Okay, so I was really looking forward to Weapons to see, what's this groundbreaking thing that he's done. It's crazy to me that he's come such a long way. I thought Weapons was good as a horror movie. I didn't think it's like... I don't get why it's considered phenomenal, personally. Like, I thought it was good. Yeah, and Gladys won like an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. I was like, she was good as a horror movie villain, but I was like, they're giving her an Oscar for this? I don't know. Like, I thought Weapons was good. I thought it was good. I in my mind, it wasn't like a mind-blowing horror movie or something, Holy Base, Whitest Kids You Know, and Jake and Amir. Yeah, I love... Jake and Amir still put out stuff, actually. They still put out stuff. It's just a lot rarer. Some of their later... Like, how do I put this? Jake and Amir have like a very niche sense of humor, and then it doubles down on itself the further you go down the Jake and Amir rabbit hole. A lot of their newer stuff is like in some ways funnier than their older stuff, but in some ways leans too much on people already knowing Jake and Amir style humor. So it's complicated. Like, complicated in the sense like it can be... I think it can be hard to grow their audience like that. Blackbeard has more mystery to him than Emu still. I mean, I think the fact that Emu's kind of been... He's taking the stage as the main villain of an arc earlier than Blackbeard is potentially not a good sign for Emu down the line. We're going to figure out a new stream topic in a second. Let me just bounce off what people are saying here for a second. Do I fuck with Invincible? And if so, which am I more excited for? Invincible episodes or the LBAP anime? I like Invincible fine. I have not started watching the new season. I could probably watch that soon. I've been watching The Sopranos. I like Invincible fine. I honestly don't think the writing is... I think Invincible, like... There's a few things. So, like, for an action series, the fights and animation aren't great, especially considering I can just watch anime instead. I think the most I was enjoying Invincible during its previous season was at a point where there was no fun anime for me to watch. So I was like, I guess I'm watching Invincible. But then right after that, I watched Solo Leveling, which had really cool fights like every single episode. I was like, why the fuck was I watching Invincible? Invincible has a lot of writing that I think is like trying to be. Invincible's like simplest thing that it tries to do is like it tries to take every single superhero trope and do something that's kind of different. Um, it tries to flip that as much as possible. And, you know, that can be good in some spots, but really, like, there's so many times in Invincible that there's a incredibly boring subplot that it does, and you don't know if it's leading to somewhere interesting, and then eventually it leads to something really fucking stupid. And it's like, okay, it led to, like, a monologue from, like, this really dull character that feels like it's supposed to be deep, but instead this whole plot line was a fucking waste of time. I guess the simplest way I can put with Invincible is that I think everything that happens with the Viltrumite conflict is 10 out of 10, gold, love that, all of the writing around that, the character stuff, great. Everything that is located to planet Earth and is dealing with teen angst shit, or like Debbie or whatever, is, you could use it as a sleep aid. You know, so that's the tricky thing for me with Invincible, and I think the whole thing would be a lot better if the fights and animation were just better, but they're really not. Invincible animators aren't the problem. Amazon doesn't give them enough time. I don't know whose fault it is. I'm not. We don't have to blame the animators. I'm just saying what the product we get. You know. I don't think Invincible is bad. I shouldn't say that. I really don't think it's bad. I just think like it's a really mixed bag. But it's kind of like I think I just realized with this last season the way it works, which is that everything that's not related to the Viltrumite stuff is just gonna be not that interesting, and not even not that interesting. You already know that it's not the main plot, so it's kind of like the show already tells you what the main plot and conflict is. And so the further you go, you're like, okay, well, it's giving us all these other plots and conflicts, but the gig is up, like the trick is up, you know, like you kind of realize at a certain point none of these individual little conflicts are ever going to have anything of consequence that's related to the big conflict, which is the Viltrumite stuff. So you now I'm painfully aware of how much it's wasting my time episode after episode when it's dealing with stuff that's not related to Viltrumite shit. Okay, so that's like the bigger thing that's annoying about it. It's kind of like with it's just too blatant that this stuff doesn't matter. It reminds me of like Lucky Charms, where if you guys have had Lucky Charms is like the most ridiculous cereal of all time, which is that most cereals spread out all of the sweet stuff. Like if you're even having a spoonful of Reese's Puffs, it's all sweet, right? Spoonful of Fruit Loops, it's all sweet. Trix, yada yada, Captain Crunch. But with Lucky Charms, it does this bizarre thing where one, I don't even know, maybe like 20% of the cereal is like sweet, sugary marshmallow stuff, and then the other 80% is like literal cardboard wood chips. And so I'm staring at it, I'm like, this is just one, like if you take a spoon of Lucky Charms, it's like, well, I can already tell what percentage good this spoonful is going to taste, depending on how many marshmallows I got, right? That's how I feel about Invincible, where it's like, okay, is this a plot that's taking place on Earth, or is this a plot that has Viltrumite stuff involved, right? Viltrumite stuff, that's the nice marshmallow stuff. That's what I'm in the show for. That's why I bought this cereal, right? That's why I'm eating this cereal. But it's flooded with all of this garbage about, oh, the fucking clone girl duplicate who we don't care about. Her brother, who also clones himself, is in jail now, and we're going to spend 3 episodes on that. Does it go anywhere? No. Does it matter? No. Do I like these characters? No. It's insane. Anyway. All right. Oh, we can put cereal rankings? Oh, I'd be happy to do a cereal tier list. Here. Lucky Charms fucking suck. They were also my sister's favorite cereal growing up. And I genuinely was like, are you stupid? Why would you want... It generally made me question her as a person. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Do you not understand what they're doing here? They're robbing you blind. You're promised like a full bowl of cereal, but what you're actually getting is like 1 out of 5 pieces of good cereal, and then like a shit ton of pieces of wood chippings. You know, yeah. And then she would get to pick the cereal. That was how my household worked. My mom did not like getting us sweets. She did not like getting us sweets ever. So like if she bought a cereal that wasn't like Honey Nut Cheerios, it was like a great occasion. And so we would get to take turns picking the cereal like maybe once a month. And she would pick Lucky Charms. I'm like, God fucking, now we gotta eat some fucking Lucky Charms. And then that's the good cereal for the week. It was fucked up. All right, here. I'll show you guys the true. Oh my God, are there this many cereals? Best cereal USA. You know what's funny? So if you go to like other countries, if you go to like India, they've got all the American cereals, but like weird knockoff versions of them. And I'm just like, when I was a kid, I think I was probably a little bratty because, you know, I would go visit my family in India. And, you know, if they're like, oh, let's buy the kids something that they can eat at home. And so we'd go to the store and I'd see like an Indian, like clearly something that wants to pretend to be Fruit Loops, but is obviously not Fruit Loops. It's like a weird knockoff Indian version of Fruit Loops, and it's terrible. Or it's not terrible. It's actually never even bad. It's just worse than the American version. And so I think over time, I think I just complained about that, and I think my aunts and uncles probably thought I was very spoiled, but I was just a kid who wanted cereal from America, you know? And they would lie. They'd be like, yeah, we have Fruit Loops and stuff. Like, we have the cereals that you want here. And I'd be like, oh boy. Because we're on vacation when we're in India. So at home, I don't actually get to eat cereals that I want, right? So we're on vacation in India. So I'm like, oh boy, I get to eat, like, you know, they're going to buy good cereals and stuff for me. But it was a trick. It was a trick. It was like, yeah, we've got Fruit Loops here. You know that meme like, oh, we have Fruit Loops at home. And then you go to Fruit Loops at home. This is more like, oh yeah, we have Fruit Loops in India. They don't have Fruit Loops in India. This might have been when I was a kid, but that was my experience. It can't be all marshmallow, though. They just need to add more marshmallow. Well, they definitely don't have the right percentage. The ratios are definitely wrong. Yeah, there's a never tried tier here. Oh, this is stupid. Why? Well, no, I guess it makes sense to separate all the Captain Crunch, but it's... I guess it makes sense to separate the Captain Crunch. I'm going to get rid of Fruit Loops this. Going to get rid of this. Never had this. I've actually never had Cocoa Puffs, surprisingly. I think because I prefer... I like Reese's Puffs when I first tried them, so I never got to really experience Cocoa Puffs. Frosted... I never had... oh, no, I've had chocolate Frosted Flakes. Not memorable, though. What's this? Family-sized Fruity Pebbles? How is family-sized Fruity Pebbles... oh, marshmallow Fruity Pebbles. I was just like... I've never had Cocoa Pebbles. I've never had Cocoa Pebbles. I don't remember chocolate Frosted Flakes enough to rate that. Don't know what this is. Don't know what this is. This looks like a heart attack. All right. What the fuck is this shit? Blueberry. Cookie Crisp. I always acknowledge Cookie Crisp is BS. That's like not a real... what do you call? That's not a real cereal. That's genuinely just cookies, you know? That's genuinely just cookies. And if you're gonna be like Morge, it looks like you didn't have a lot of cereals, you would be correct. Because again, if you're listening to the backstory, my mom did not give me the cereal, the amount of cereals that I wanted. Count Chocula. Yeah, I think I never got to try Cookie Crisp from what I remember. But to be fair, with Cookie Crisp, that was like self-policing. Because I think I, as a kid, never even requested Cookie Crisp. Because I was just like... even I, as like an 8-year-old child, can look at that box and be like, this isn't breakfast. This is just cookies. This is just chocolate chip cookies. Like, this is the most insane. Whoever came up with Cookie Crisp was like low-key uh, like heartless. Like, I think that this is similar. I would put the inventor of Cookie Crisp on a similar tier to just like cocaine dealers and like, you know, heroin dealers and stuff, because it's just like you got to absolutely not give a shit about what you're spreading to come up with this idea, because like all cereals, like the sugary ones, like flirt with basically being a dessert, right? It's like we're breakfast, but really we're like a dessert, right? But Cookie Crisp is just like, we don't give a fuck. Like, you don't need any sort of nutrients or whatever. Just eat some fucking chocolate chip cookies for breakfast. Eat a whole fucking bowl full of chocolate chip cookies for breakfast. Put it in milk. Call it a cereal. Like, I think it's fucked up. You know? It's like, they're not even trying. They're not even pretending, you know? You just have to absolutely not give a shit about the kids to come up with Cookie Crisp. Because it's not even intelligent. Like, any one of us could come up with Cookie Crisp, you know? Like, imagine you're working at General whatever the thing is, you know? Imagine you're working there. It's like, I just came up with a great idea for a cereal. Just fucking give them cookies. Just give them a bunch of chocolate chip cookies. Just take a packet of Chips Ahoy and put it in a bowl and call it a day. Like, we all could come up with that. It's just most of us have the ethics to not do that, you know? It's insane. Okay, let's get into it. Let's rank this real quick. Yeah, I didn't get to try a lot of cereals growing up, all right? That's the point of this. Okay. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, in my opinion, great cereal. I think that's an S tier cereal. I don't remember enough about each of the Captain Crunches to differentiate. I think I like the mixed berry one a lot. I think that's good. I don't remember simple. I think even just simple Captain Crunch is really good though. And I'll just put the all berries thing here as well. All right, Fruit Loops. Are we at Fruit Loops? Fruit Loops, that's an A tier cereal. That's good. Lucky Charms, D. It does have the marshmallows though, so it's a saving grace. Holy Grail of cereals, the best cereal of all time, Reese's Puffs. Easily my favorite. Honeycomb's okay. Honeycomb's okay. I think it's a C. This is the blandest cereal of all time. Pure oats Cheerios. I feel like that's what you have when you're like 80 years old. Honey Nut Cheerios. Lucky Charms are better than Honey Nut Cheerios. And Honey Nut Cheerios... Okay, you know what? We'll move this. I think this is fair. Frosted Flakes. I was never a huge Frosted Flakes person. I'd put it here. Honeycomb I might drop to with Lucky Charms. Fruity Pebbles. I think I'm putting Fruity Pebbles up here with Frosted Flakes. Fruity Pebbles just get soggy too fast. That's the biggest problem because they're so small. They just get soggy really fast. Apple Jacks, I think they're here. I think Apple Jacks are here. I think Fruit Loops and Apple Jacks, that's a toss-up. Trix! Oh, fuck. I forgot. Trix was my first love. Trix was my favorite cereal when I was like a kid. Reese's Puffs, that's my favorite cereal as I got older. Once I became a man, Reese's Puffs were my favorite cereal. When I was a child, Trix were my favorite cereal. Yeah. Raisin Bran, F. Mini Wheats. Mini Wheats is F, but at the top of F. I don't think these Rice Krispies... I don't remember having them. I think I had them, but I don't 100% remember. I'm going to put them here, okay? This is my hierarchy of cereals, right? This is amazing. I'm super happy if you give me these. I'm going to drop Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Amazing. These are my favorites, all-time favorites. These are very good. I'm happy with all of these. These are solid. Like, if I'm at a hotel, and at the hotel breakfast, and these are the options, I'm not upset. These are not good / bad. But they have some merits in some situations. This is basically just health food. This is actually just health food. There we go. Trix is like the tween crossover step back. Trix is amazing. What's your guys' favorite cereal? What would you guys pick? Trix is the GOAT? Yeah. You guys don't like Captain Crunch? Captain Crunch is great. He's got all the good ones in F. What? Mini Wheats? Raisin Bran? Plain Cheerios? Are you guys... I gotta check my YouTube demographics list. You guys sound like you're all nursing home patients. Storm Fox, thanks for the 5. Biggest thing for Emu is that Luffy has a dream beyond Pirate King. Emu is also just the root of everything, including Blackbeard. Yeah, but I feel like we don't know how far back Emu being the root of everything goes, because he's arguably just, from what we know so far, he's just the bad guy from the second world, you know? I don't know if he goes all the way back to first world or anything. And then the flip side also is just like, I don't think Blackbeard's goal is just Pirate King either. You know, Blackbeard's goal seems to be similar to Rox's goal, King of the World. And then Davy Jones theoretically goes further back than Emu. We don't know yet, or at least coexisted. So, I obviously Blackbeard's a newer character, like he's younger, but he could be carrying a weight of history that goes further than Emu. I don't know. Growth Stonks, thanks for the 5. Morge, we need the Kid/Loki vid. It's possible the through line between them is that 14 years ago, Loki was the pirate that inspired Kid, like Rock/Loki. Oh, that's a really interesting idea. But I'm not going to do a Kid video. I might do a Kid video if there feels like a appropriate pause is there. It was also curious that Oda's still drawing Kid. Yeah. I think that... I don't know about that theory that you just dropped. That's an interesting idea. What I would say is that with Kid, I'm not sure, because Oda just... let me see what Oda just drew. Right, let's take a look. He just drew Kid again. Why draw Kid again if you don't even like the character and you want him out of the story? I just don't know. Just don't know. Tiptier Treviso, thanks for the 2. Oreos was the goat, search it up. Yeah, like that's a step removed from Cookie Crisp. I just don't even count it as cereal at that point. It's just like, why not just chop up some like Twinkies and put it into a cereal? It's like, you know, or some zebra cakes or something like that, you know? Here, I kind of want to poll you guys on this stuff. Okay. Let's see what your guys' favorite cereal is. Best cereal. Here, we'll do a couple rounds. For me, Reese's Puffs is king. But I would accept Trix as well. The young boy's soul that's within me would still be happy with Reese's Puffs. Okay, let's start with this stuff. Let's start with these options. Fuck it, I'll throw in Fruit Loops too. We'll start with these and we'll trim it down. Kid is obviously alive. Yeah, it's more like, is he going to be relevant? I would really... My least favorite outcome would be like Oda keeps Kid alive, but just irrelevant. Just kill him, man. You know? Okay, so other people love Reese's Puffs too. Oh, that makes me feel happy. Reese's Puffs are great. So we just done talking about Blackbeard and Emu? Let me fill you all in if you're coming in right now. There are currently, I guess you would call them hints. They're not even full spoilers yet, but they're hints of spoilers that are out right now that suggest that this stream topic would be better addressed next Monday's stream. Because we've got I don't think this is a spoiler to say, which is that we've got what seems to be an all-time great chapter coming that could, if the leakers are hyping it up without too much exaggeration, that could reframe our entire perspective on the final villain debate in One Piece. So if that's the case, then if I start talking about the emo Blackbeard debate right now, the tricky thing is, and we put up like if we start doing a pros and cons, arguments for and against list, what I know will happen is basically people will, who have, read the hints and the spoilers and stuff, they will start pulling in information from that. And it just feels like a waste to start talking about that before we've seen what these things actually, the new information that we get. Especially because it appears that we're getting a break after this chapter, Okay, so Reese's Puff seems to win there. I'll throw in some other options, though. I'll get an Apple Jacks, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Cinnamon Toast Crunch had phenomenal ads. I'll get in Frosted Flakes. Then what are we doing today? You guys wanted a cereal tier list. XX Gravity, thank you for the 20. I theorized that Blackbeard will swoop in to finish Emu off in the final war and take his Devil Fruit. I think it would be thematically fitting, as the final conflict would be an escalation/climax of his and Luffy's conflict. I still believe that will be the case. I think that's what we're heading towards. Applejack's promos were top tier in Let's Not Lie. Yeah, Applejack. Oh, wait. Was Cinnamon Toast... I think Applejack's had the best ads. Cinnamon Toast Crunch didn't have the best... I missed it. I mixed them up. I think Trix had some great ones. Iconic. Applejack's phenomenal. Lucky Charms was pretty good, too. What was the racist Jamaican cinnamon stick commercial? I think that was Applejack's. I think. Let's see if we... Yeah. I think that was Applejack's. But it worked. Oh, man. Cinnamon Toast Crunch is... Whoa, you guys really like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Oh, shit. I mean, it is really good. Cereal is more important than One Piece, with more just trash taste. Shook my head. I put the cereals you guys love up top. You guys seem to really like Reese's Puffs. I got that right here. Cinnamon Toast I got at the top of A tier. Jonathan Ewan, thanks for the 2. Yo, Morge, check out the new mascot for Cinnamon, please. The new mascot for Cinnamon Toast Crunch. All right, let's take a look. Hold on. Cinnamon Toast Crunch new mascot. It's just a piece of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, right? It just looks like a piece of Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Here, this is what it looks like. Whoops. It just looks like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. What's crazy about this mascot? Is that weird that that's the mascot? Frosted Flakes and Lucky Charms had by far the best ads. Frosted Flakes, yeah, they got a good jingle too. I don't think they have the best ads. I think they just got maybe the best jingle. Lucky Charms had great ads. Trix had great ads. Yeah, those were strong. Tip Tier Treviso, thanks for the 2. Morge, I want to debate Final Villain. Stop holding hope for Emu. Okay, we can talk about it a bit. Instead of talking about cereal. Okay? But my worry is that if we open up a board, here's what we'll do. We'll start talking about it a bit. But I don't want... My worry is that people will start posting spoilers from this upcoming chapter. And I don't want people to do that. We got Fruit Loops. Hold on. We get Fruit Loops. Yeah. Well, it's nightmare inducing. Oh, I guess I got to see it in commercial format because like you could argue that the M&M's mascots are nightmare inducing if you just saw a random image of them. I'd be like, what the fuck is this? You show this to kids? But in context, it's all cool, you know. Spoilers aren't even out, man. Chill. Oh, they're. I don't know what to call them. I don't know what to call them. Even if there were, the spoilers wouldn't change shit. I think I've looked at the hints. I think that they at least have some. I think some potential to change some minds. I think portrayal goes a long way. Can we spoil whether or not there is a break next week? Yeah, there's no break next week. Yeah, let's keep spoilers out. Here's what I would say. So what I would say is that if you were to ask me odds, where it gets tricky is that the odds of Luffy defeating Blackbeard, period, right? Like Luffy being the one to defeat Blackbeard, to give the final blow, like beat him, right? The odds of that are like 95%. Like the only reason a 5% chance exists is if like Oda, I don't even know Oda has to rush the end of One Piece dramatically, or some crazy thing happens or something like that, right? Like he has a dramatic change of plans because he, I don't know, goes senile or something like that all of a sudden. Okay, so because there's always a chance, right? But I think most people would always agree that Luffy versus Blackbeard, and generally probably Straws versus Blackbeard Pirates, seems really set in stone, right? So because we've got that like as the floor for Blackbeard, like one of Luffy's final villains, Blackbeard's floor in terms of significance, like a really big part of Blackbeard's final villain significance or potential is already checked off, right? Luffy will fight Blackbeard. You can more definitively say that Luffy is definitely going to be the one to defeat Blackbeard than you can say Luffy is definitely going to defeat Emu, right? There's still a very high chance that Luffy defeats Emu, but there's so many questions around it, right? Is it going to be a team effort? Is it going to be, like what's the context? Is it going to be like a one-on-one? Is it going to be a team effort? Is Luffy going to be the one to land the final blow, or will Luffy just be involved and somebody else lands the final blow, right? With Emu, there's less because that personal antagonism has been developed less, right? Elbaf is the opportunity to really grow that and build on that, but there is just more of a question mark, right? So with Blackbeard, it's like it's almost guaranteed. It's as good of a guarantee as you have in One Piece that Luffy will beat Blackbeard and be the one to put him down. It is not yet a guarantee that Luffy will be the one to put Emu down, for sure. Okay, in the same way. But you would still say really good odds, like probably 70-30 or something like that, right? If you say Blackbeard, for sure 95-5. Emu, you're like, I think there's a really good shot. Luffy gives even the final punch, but 1v1. Like, there's a lot of questions about how it would go down or whatever, right? So, I'd say 70-30 or 60-40 or something like that, right? So that's the one thing that's tricky. But the flip side is that in terms of Blackbeard's significance versus Emu's significance in the story as a whole, Emu already has the position of final boss, if that makes sense. The question is more so, could Blackbeard usurp that? So it's kind of two different discussions that's what makes this such a unique situation, okay? Because we know this fight is going to happen, Luffy Blackbeard. The question is just the order. Is it going to happen first or last, right? With Emu, there's more things that could happen because he already has the position of final boss, right? It's more so, could Blackbeard take it from him? Okay, so because Emu already has the position of final boss, and the question just becomes, is he going to be usurped before the end of it? That's what creates the question mark of like, us not knowing for sure that Luffy is going to beat Emu, but we have good reason to believe that it will happen. Does that make sense? That's why Oda's created a really interesting situation here. It's really interesting. I can't think of a comparable situation in manga that I can think of where either villain makes perfect sense. Eric thinks of the two. Blackbeard's entire plot is getting the throne lull. Yeah, I would personally prefer Blackbeard becoming the final villain. I prefer that. But and I think obviously everything is set up for that. But I don't think we can write it off as easily as just saying Blackbeard's entire plot is getting the throne lull, because by that logic, I mean, Kaido's entire plot was fully taking over Wano, transporting Onigashima over there, and then starting the final war, right? That was Kaido's entire plot. He wants to start the final war. That's what he says in his introduction, right? You can apply this logic to lots of characters where you're like, well, their whole storyline is trying to do this or trying to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they're set to achieve right? Obviously, with Blackbeard, I think it's more there's more story that's been developed for him. I'm not trying to say he's the same level of significance as Kaido, but I'm just saying that you can't follow the reasoning that just because, Horty Jones' entire plot was taking over Fishman Island and then doing this and this, that he's going to achieve that. Crocodile's entire plot is trying to take over Alabasta and get Pluton. That doesn't mean that that's going to go his way, Yeah, but Blackbeard is the overarching villain. Why would Oda set up to fail? I mean, but Eric, that's the thing that we're kind of debating here, right? Which is Blackbeard the overarching villain, or is Emu the overarching villain, I mean, either way, they're villains, so they're both going to fail in the end, right? Luffy's going to be the one to succeed. So the main thing is villains always will fail in the end in One Piece. Except for, funnily enough, Enel. Who was the worst villain in One Piece who got his way. But everybody's set to fail. So the question is, will Blackbeard get to at least achieve his personal dream before it's taken from him by Luffy, or not, right? But Wano was the land of drop plot threads, so the Kaido comparison doesn't count for shit. I'm saying you apply that to every single villain in One Piece. Did Captain Kuro achieve his goal? His entire plot was taking over Usopp's village, or stealing the inheritance money and all that shit, right? Did Don Krieg achieve his goal? His entire plot was trying to steal the Baratier shit. It's just... Kaido is the most recent example. You just go through all of One Piece. Did Crocodile achieve his goal? No. Did Wapol achieve his goal? No. Right? I don't think you can just be well, Crocodile's entire plot was to have Baroque Works overthrow Alabasta, so of course he's going to do that. It's no, if anything, that's why he's not going to be allowed to do that, In the entire story, yes, Blackbeard is the overarching villain since Drum Island. Again, man, that's just kind of the debate that we're having here. You can say that Blackbeard himself has been the longer overarching villain than Emu, and that's true. But then you could also flip it and say that as an entity, the world government has been the longest, most important overarching villain of One Piece, and we just took a while to learn who's at the top of the world government, right? So you could view it two ways, and that, yeah, Blackbeard himself, individual basis, Blackbeard is the longest running villain, but as an overall, the overall conflict of One Piece, you might argue is more about defeating the world government. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, not because I'm still on the Blackbeard final villain train. I'm just playing devil's advocate that I don't think that any of the points that are being made here are open and shut. I don't think this is an open and shut scenario. I get what you're saying. I resonate with what you're saying. I just don't think that any of those arguments just shut the door, World government wasn't a villain since, maybe Jaya? No, world government was a villain since, fucking Axan Morgan. The whole point is that we enter the world and we slowly learn the great oppressive force that exists on the seas. But we feel it from the get-go, From day one, Marines are the oppressive force that we're dealing with, right? Then we progress a little further and we get to Wapol. And Wapol is the first time that we're actually hearing about the world government. The world government is first mentioned by Wapol, and he talks about how the world government is going to punish you guys. Very interestingly, that is also the same point in the story that Oda introduces Blackbeard. He has, or not introduces Blackbeard, he has Blackbeard mentioned. So Oda's very careful with this. Drum Kingdom is where the world government is first mentioned, and where the Blackbeard pirates are first mentioned. You progress a little further. You get to the Jaya storyline. Jaya is the first storyline where Blackbeard is introduced and where the Gorosei, the celestial dragons, are introduced, right? The Gorosei are essentially Imu's stand-ins because it's too early to show Imu himself. But it's literally, by the way, what's crazy is it's back-to-back chapters. So the same chapter that Oda officially introduces the Blackbeard pirates, one chapter before that is where Oda initially introduces the Gorosei. It's insanely deliberate framing by Oda, right? So we're learning more about this Blackbeard character as we also start to learn more about the world government and the way the world government works, and we're slowly going up the ladder of like first seeing like Marines, then various evil kings that belong to the world government, then the Gorosei themselves, Imu's puppets, and then finally we're getting Imu himself much later down the line. But it is all very, very deliberate. So that's why I'm saying it's not so open and shut. Like Oda himself is trying to play, like you just look at the timing of how he does things. Like it's not a coincidence that in Drum Kingdom, Oda is first telling us about the world government and about Blackbeard. It's not a coincidence that in back-to-back chapters in Jaya, Oda officially introduces the Gorosei and officially introduces the Blackbeard pirates, right? These are not coincidental choices. It's Oda continuing to play the train of like, what is gonna be the finale of the story? Is it gonna be, are we working towards defeating this Blackbeard dude, or are we working towards defeating the world government? You know, that's all I'm trying to point out. That it's a long running parallel that Oda's running. Just because Oda couldn't narratively reveal Imu's existence to us as early in the story as he did Blackbeard, because that would just ruin too much of what Oda's building, doesn't change the fact that Oda is still trying to build the setup for Imu as a villain beat for beat at the same points in the story that he's trying to build up Blackbeard as a villain. Again, I still lean towards Blackbeard. I'm just, I guess, still playing devil's advocate because I think it's more, there's more to it on both sides, you know? Taptio Treviso, thanks for the 5. In Morge's videos, I always got more chills from Blackbeard versus Luffy final matchup analysis. Imu being final villain always felt like, well, he's strongest and God. So, yeah, that's my biggest thing, which is I think that there's so much more uniqueness to Blackbeard as the final villain. And so it's so much more One Piece in my mind, and it says so much more. It shows the idea of cycles, of how inherited will can be twisted. I think there's just so much more power to Blackbeard becoming the final villain. And I also talked about how in like one of my most recent videos on the subject, that it feels like at the end of the first world, there was like a great destructive force that had to be dealt with. And then at the end of the second world, Imu arose as the new big evil. I feel like the third world is going to be Blackbeard, who represents the evils of the first world and the second world. Again, you got to go check out that video to get my full breakdown on that, but it's a very recent one. It's the video on Blackbeard releasing the World Serpent. John Connor, thanks for the 5. Blackbeard will be the final villain, and Luffy will beat him with a headbutt to beat some sense into him, as they have some similar dreams, but with a good and evil twist. I think whatever the final villain for Luffy is going to be one where it's like really, really heated, in my opinion. I don't think it'll be one where like Luffy just beats some sense into him and it's over. Taptio, thanks for the 2. Blackbeard's goal is beyond King of the World, and Luffy stops him then. Maybe. That's entirely possible. Entirely possible. Let me give you guys a poll on that right now, and then I want to do a poll. I'm going to run this poll now, and I'm going to run this poll again after the chapter comes out. SMX Wing, thanks for the 5. You know that bad tennis player from Seinfeld, Milos, wanted Jerry to fake being bad to make him look good for his girlfriend? That's live-action Dr. Hero look. Wait, what? Wait, what? That's the same actor? There's no way. What? It's Haralook, right? There's no way. That was Milos from What? Oh my god. That's crazy. I had no idea he was such a good actor. It's a funny Seinfeld episode because he's supposed to be a tennis instructor, he owns a tennis shop or whatever. but he's actually really bad. And then he's a dick to Jerry when Jerry's like throwing it to help him. Pull the screenshot to compare. See, man, he got old. Amazing. Yeah, but it's just, what the fuck? That's great. Here, I'll show you guys. I don't know how many people. I don't know how common it is to see Seinfeld nowadays. I get the sense it's still very popular, but I don't know how much like, Gen Z and stuff would be familiar. That's crazy. The hell? Milos was a shitty character too, so it's funny that, he was able to play such a kind-hearted character as well. Eric says, the Davy and Rox plot adds more to Blackbeard. Also, Rox saying, I'll be back, sets it up for Blackbeard. Yeah, I mean, I hope so, man. I hope so. I'm still on the Blackbeard train. It seems like 70% of viewers here are still on the Blackbeard train. Seinfeld got funnier as I got older along with Frasier. Yeah, I think the only thing about because Seinfeld is one where like as you get older, you resonate more with a lot of the things that it really like hones in on, like the little social peculiarities that we deal with, and like some of the things that we mull over, like is this right or wrong to do or whatever. I think George Costanza represents the best of Seinfeld, in my opinion. Because I think his jokes and the way that he goes through life trying to navigate things in his own particular way while also playing the line between right and wrong, but erring a bit more to wrong, but human throughout it is like really, really relatable. On the flip side, Curb also... Curb does it, but just in a bit more of a caricature sort of way. Mugatan says, if Chopper's fruit cures Dami Reversi, and that's why Blackbeard came to Drum to get it, that's just Oda had Emu and Drum and Dami Reversi planned by Drum also. Blackbeard and Emu set up the same arc. That's also true. I mean, Oda's also very good at connecting things from from earlier in time as well. I've never seen Frasier, so I don't know. George is Larry. Yeah, they've been very open with that. It's just... they give different performances still. They give different performances. I honestly cannot think of a single shonen villain like Blackbeard. Yeah, that's the thing. Blackbeard would just be so different. He'd be so unique. I think that Emu is such a common type of villain at this point that it's almost outdated. It's like fucking Sauron or some shit, or Emperor Palpatine or whatever, Obviously, Emu's somewhat different than those guys, but the overall concept is the same. All right, 1 second. I'm going to go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back. We'll be right back, All right. Bro left the moment I commented. Sorry about that, man. Nothing personal. The Summer of George. Hold on. Hold on. Let me ask you guys this. I think what I realized is that I think between Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, I think a single clip, like if I'm watching random clips or like just bits of Curb Your Enthusiasm, I might find those funnier. I think I still prefer Seinfeld as a show. And those are two different things. Like, because Curb is newer, it's like more current humor. I think Seinfeld still has some jokes that are more dated, and the style is a bit more dated. But Curb, I think, is more likely to just make me laugh. Like, you could just have Leon talk about some random shit for like a scene, and it might make me laugh a bit more. But Curb doesn't have a good flow compared to Seinfeld, and I think Seinfeld, I like the overall ensemble of characters better. I think it creates like a different, it creates a distinctive feel that I think I still have a fonder memory of the show better than I do of Curb, I think. But I really like those two. Like they're both up there for my favorite sitcoms, period. Like I love Curb is great. Curb is great. It depends. If you ask me another day, I might say I like Curb better. I guess I would say that. I think I like the show Seinfeld better. I think Curb might make me laugh more frequently over the course of the show, but that's not all I value, I think. Curb is really hard to binge sometimes. It gets so loud and not as chill. Yeah, yeah, 100%. But Curb is amazing in clip form. Eric says all the plots coming together at the end is genius. Yeah, I mean, I think Curb is kind of good at that too. But Seinfeld is like really good at that because it's scripted. It's hard to, you know. Curb is better storytelling though. I'd say over a course of a season, it has better storytelling. Jerry is a bad actor though. Yeah, that's the craziest thing, which is that Larry did not like they hired Jason Alexander to play George because Larry did not want to put himself in the show because he thought he was a bad actor. Turns out Larry David is a way better actor than Jerry Seinfeld. It's not even close. I wish I still enjoyed Always Sunny as much. Always Sunny is very hit or miss with its humor. It's just I remember the hits so much better, but I cannot tell you the number of times that I've tried to like introduce Always Sunny to somebody, and I'm just like, oh, let's watch this episode. This episode's gold, and then you're playing it, and like I know all of the funny parts that are in the episode, but a lot of the in between conversations because it's so unscripted and it's just like characters being like what the fuck, oh, what about this goddamn thing, like what are we gonna do this like it feels almost so amateurish, and I'm like once you're with the Always Sunny vibe it works, but if you're new to the show it kind of just feels like just like rough, like they didn't edit the script at all or whatever. And here's another thing, when I first watched It's Always Sunny, the thing that stuck out to me the most, because my roommates in college, they really loved It's Always Sunny already. So I slowly assimilated enjoying it. But the first time they tried to show me an episode, legitimately, Dennis, Mac, and Charlie all just blended together. Which seems absurd to say now, because now I know how distinct the characters are. But It's Always Sunny was just created by like that trio of friends just making the show together. Whereas I realized that like... in actual TV studios and stuff like that, they do a lot of effort with casting and try to make sure that every person looks as distinct as possible. Dennis, Mac, and Charlie, depending on the episode you're getting them in, you might not be able to tell the three of them apart for some time. Like, I'm serious. And I'm not somebody who's like, oh, you need like crazy DEI or whatever for TV shows or whatever. But I'm just saying that legitimately I was like, okay, between the three white guys, what's their names or whatever? Like, because, I mean, you look at Seinfeld, that's three white guys, Jerry, George, and Kramer. But they're all very, very distinct in terms of their appearance and how they talk or whatever and all of that, right? It's Always Sunny. Legitimately, it took me a couple episodes before I began to realize, okay, like, Dennis is this dude, and he's totally different from, like, Mac and Charlie. It doesn't help that Mac and Charlie are both very, very dumb. So it's like, it's just Charlie's way dumber than Mac, but it takes a couple episodes to really differentiate that. It might sound crazy to say now, especially because, like, I'm such a big It's Always Sunny fan at this point, so now they feel like totally different characters. But when I was first watching it, I remember I was watching the three of them talk about, I think, the Iraq War or something like that. And the point is, like, all three of them didn't really know about the Iraq War. So, like, it was a stupid conversation that the three of them were having. But because I was totally new to the show, to me it just seemed like all, like, three white dudes that actually look vaguely similar to one another, right? Not drastically different. And they're all kind of dumb, and I was like, I don't really get these characters, you know? Man, I hate that term DEI. I just didn't want viewers to suddenly be like, Morge, you're, I don't know, something about, like, you're too woke, what's wrong with It's Always Sunny having, like, three white guys. I didn't want to get into all that, so I'm just like, it's not about, it's just the fact that they all look vaguely similar, you know? I've noticed it's really cool to rip on Friends. I don't think I would ever be able to sit down and, like, binge stream Friends, but my family had it on TV when it was just, like, on cable when I was in high school. Friends, I think a lot of people are like, Friends isn't funny, yada yada. It's not clever funny. Friends, I think the appeal, at least why I still enjoy the show Friends, is because the main cast has by far the best chemistry of any ensemble in comedy that I've seen. It genuinely feels like you're watching a group of friends. Like, they just play off each other so well, and their reactions and their personalities, it just meshes really well. So, like, a simple clip that I'd recommend people to go check out is, like, it's not even the funniest clip. It's just Friends, Joey and Chandler, Monica and Rachel are, like, trying to compete to see who wins an apartment. Ross sets up a quiz game for them to compete. Winner gets it, right? And it's just based on who knows each other better or whatever, right? It's not like the funniest set, like the jokes aren't even the funniest or whatever, but it literally feels like I'm watching real life friends who are desperately trying to compete with one another to get an apartment, and just the reactions and the big the flow of it and the way that they interact with one another and how big they get, how upset they get, all of that. It's there's nothing like that in other sitcoms. There just isn't. That's why Friends got so popular. It's pretty distinct in that sense. So Friends is like a good feel-good light comedy show, even if it's not the funniest. It's just, but it does hold up in that sense. Modern Family is beyond corny. It's beyond corny. It just, like, when Modern Family first came out, I was like, okay, so they're just copying The Office, but, like, an insanely corny version of The Office. Random guy, thanks for the 2. Do you think Aokiji will have a 1v1 in the Final War? Okay, let me share some thoughts on what I think some matchups could go like in the Final War, even though I don't want to get into that too much. I think that I think that there's two characters that might fight Kizaru, because I think that Kizaru is set up, I don't think he's going to change sides, but I think he's the Admiral that is going to, because he's an Admiral that basically has made his choice which is he's going to stay on the side of the world government, even though the path was open for him to break out and rebel. And he basically had that choice with the Vegapunk, and he chose not to, and he's ashamed of himself for it, but he's made his choice. I think Kizaru is set up to fight either Aokiji or Fujitora, because I think Aokiji and Fujitora, basically both ways you spin it, can represent that perfect thematic and character conflict for Kizaru. Because Kizaru, it's not the same as like fighting Akainu, because Akainu just is Akainu. Like, he's bought in to the justice, absolute justice, world government, yada yada, right? Even if he doesn't fuck with the Celestial Dragons, he does fuck with the idea of like absolute right and wrong, justice, evil pirates, etc. Whereas Aokiji used to be like Kizaru. Like, Aokiji's whole arc is the same as Kizaru's. It's just that Aokiji made the choice to break away. That's the difference. Like, I've done this whole video before explaining like the tragedy of Kizaru, how it parallels Aokiji, etc. But beat for beat, everything that Kizaru goes through at Egghead is a direct parallel to what Aokiji experienced at Ohara. It's a direct one-to-one parallel, right? Down to the Buster Call, the choices that they got to make, all of that. But the simple difference is that Aokiji, at the end of the day, was able to recognize when the world government was going too far. He did not kill his best friend. He let Robin go. He was able to make some changes, and that was the start of his path towards eventually breaking free of the world government's dogma in general, right? Kizaru was presented the same situation as Aokiji, and the same choices were before him, but he ultimately tarnishes his soul forever, right? He does actually kill Vegapunk. He does not do one good, like, he feeds Luffy, so that's the thing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, he does kill Vegapunk. He does not deviate, even though he's given many opportunities to deviate. And it hits even harder because all of the people that Kizaru is closest to, right? Sentomaru, who he raised like a kid, like practically. He's standing against Kizaru and telling him, like, you're on the wrong side, shift sides. Vegapunk, Kizaru's best friend or whatever, he's the one that Kizaru's been sent out to kill. And he's like, can you really do this? Can you go through this? And Kizaru's like, yeah, like fucking Bonnie, right? Who Kizaru still has a soft spot for. All of these characters, Kuma, all of them, they're all on the other side. Kizaru has ample opportunity to shift. He just sticks through it, and then it kind of breaks him in the end mentally that he went through with that, right? But he didn't make the choices that Aokiji did, right? Aokiji kind of saves his soul in a really small way. Like, I think Aokiji is forever tarnished by what went down in Ohara, but he did at least begin the path to change there. I think that we saw Kizaru go through the same thing, and on the one hand, maybe this does launch a character arc for him. That'd be cool. But at the same time, I think that it was written to be a parallel to Aokiji, and Kizaru ultimately did not make the choices that Aokiji did in the same situation. So I wonder if that's leading towards a sort of scenario where I think that Kizaru in the Final War should be fighting a former Marine. I think Aokiji is the best person for that to be, because Aokiji is Kizaru. Kizaru is Aokiji. They're just the same story, just made different choices. And now Aokiji has chosen the right path and is going to be against the Marines and the world government at the end of the day. I don't think he'll be with the Blackbeard pirates at the end of the day. But I think Aokiji has made the right choice and is going to be on the right side of history. And I think him versus Kizaru is a phenomenal matchup in that sense, because Kizaru losing thematically shows who made the right choice in the end, right? Setting that aside, I think Kizaru Fujitora could be good for other more straightforward reasons, which is just like Fujitora is a straight up, like, he just is a good guy Marine who is definitely going to defect by the time of the Final War or whatever, and gravity counters light. So I think it's so I think, like, to me that's like the simpler sort of logic there, which is just like, if Kizaru needs to be fucked up by, like, because I think that's important. I think Kizaru losing to a former Marine who actually, because Kizaru essentially represents a guy who is probably a good guy underneath, but doesn't have the will to stand against the will or the freedom of thought to stand against what he should know is wrong, right? So I think him losing to a Marine or former Marine who is basically symbolic of actually doing the right thing and actually standing for justice, even if that's not what the world government says. I think that's really good. And I think Aokiji is a great setup for that. I also think Fujitora would be a great setup for that. And I think Fujitora just hard counters Kizaru. Oda not going to go to the physics-based fights at that level. I mean, I don't think that's a complex physics-based thing. You know, I don't think that's like anything crazy. It's just, that's like a known counter to, that's like people know about black holes and shit, you know? Like, that's not like complex physics. That's just, I think that's just known, you know? Sheriff Laffy, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 42 months. Do you think we'll get any Admiral backstories in a detailed / extended way? I think we'll get a Kainu. Pete Gear 4th, thanks for the 5. Because I think Akainu is like let me just finish that thought. I think Akainu is like a really important villain for the end of the story. And we've gotten something for Big Mom. We kind of got something for Kaido. I think Akainu is more important than either of them. I think Akainu will get something in the end. I don't know if we need one for Aokiji or Kizaru. You know, because like I don't think there's anything that need for... Because the Admirals are an interesting spot, because like with Aokiji, his backstory was Ohara. Like, usually you want the backstory to be us understanding who the character is today. Ohara is what made us understand who Aokiji is today. With Kizaru, it just feels like he is who he is, and he's been just the sort of neutral, keep my head down figure for a long time. If he is to have a backstory, it would essentially be whatever happened at Egghead, you know, where he had to go through with that, and maybe that leads to a change. But Akainu is the one where it's like, okay, this dude is different. Like, this dude is, there's clearly something going on up there where he is obsessive about killing pirates and is willing to commit genocide just to make sure that no potential for quote-unquote evil gets out. Like, what made you like this, you know? Pete Gear 4th, thanks to the 5. Yomoj, I don't think the Dami Reversi thing isn't working because of their devil fruits. Otherwise, Dami Herald wouldn't have gone for a fruit. Yeah? I think the Holy Pacts work differently for whatever reason than Dami Reversi. We've already seen a lot of ways that they work differently, but the simple proof is that several Gods Knights have devil fruits and Holy Pacts, you know? We've not technically seen... anyone get Dami Reversi'd who has a devil fruit. So that's possibly the reason. I think Jesus Burgess First Fleet says, I think it's important that Oda shows us what creates this mindset in reference to Akainu. And yeah, I think that's the really important thing. Like, because we what's interesting is that throughout this story, that's why Akainu is such an important character, because throughout this story, it's kind of become a given that, look, the world government sucks. Pirates, they suffer due to, like, pirates are often people who are born out of the world government's oppression as a backlash to it, right? Like, pirates are born out of, you know, like it's explained many times over. Like, the world government makes these islands shitty and these islands shitty, and it creates orphans and yada yada, and that's why so many of them grow up to be pirates, right? Like the fucking, like Kaido did, like, it's implied Whitebeard became a pirate because he grew up in an island that the world government left behind, right? Obviously, all of the fishmen, Arlong, Hordes, because of the world government, right? It's again, we've met a million villains at this point where it's like they're the way they are largely because the world government created a world that causes this, right? Akainu is different in that he would be the first character that we ever meet where we see the flip side of things, where it's like a character who's just like so hardcore extreme in the direction of like all pirates are evil, absolute justice, need to just eradicate all evil, no room for ambiguity or anything like that. If you're against the world government, you need to die, right? He's the first character where we would get to explore what creates that in the wild, right? Because the Celestial Dragons, we can't actually explore that because the Celestial Dragons are just these cartoonishly evil, like, well, we were just born noble and we've been living as rich assholes for like the last 800 years, right? Akainu is a person who just in the world itself seems to have grown up and organically come up with the mentality that it's pirates that are really, really, really evil and the world government is the lesser evil between pirates and whatever, the justice system, right? Because generally, like, we saw the little drawing of Akainu as a kid. He seems to have grown up like in a war-torn situation, really beat up, roughed up, etc., right? Usually characters that grow up like that grow up to be pirates. Akainu, whatever he experienced was the opposite. He experienced the evils of pirates, it seems like, growing up. And I think Oda usually doesn't actually like to show us that side of things as much. That's what I've talked about a lot in my videos, which is like, with the world government, Oda does a lot of show. He shows us a lot of the evils that they do, and he shows us a lot of characters who have become pirates, revolutionaries, etc., good and evil, because of the world government, right? On the flip side, in terms of the evils of pirates, Oda generally does a lot of tell. He tells us throughout the story that, like, constantly islands are, like, ravaged by pirates, citizens live in fear of pirates, yada yada. That's why they look up to the Marines. That's why they view the Marines and the world government as their heroes, their protectors, yada yada. But, Oda's telling the story from the side of pirates, so we don't actually get to see the evils that pirates do on the common man that much. We get glimpses of what they might do, like, what if the Black Cat pirates got to Usopp's village? What if Don Krieg's pirates weren't defeated by the Straw Hats, right? A lot of those situations. But I think this would be the first time that we really, with Akainu, we get a backstory where we truly get to see just like, okay, what happens when what is all of this other stuff Oda's been telling us about but not really showing us, of like how bad pirates can be and like what pirates are doing to citizens in all corners of the world. Because I think that makes the discussion around the general morality of One Piece a lot more nuanced once we get into that as well. That's why, like, I think a lot of the arguments about, like, Garp, bootlicker, etc., you're automatically evil if you're part of the Marines in general. I think a lot of that stuff, they're dumb arguments to make, but I understand why people kind of feel them, because Oda really doesn't go out of his way to show us that much of how bad pirates can be and why it's important for Marines to come defend lands. Because usually, anytime we're shown pirates being evil, the Straw Hats, like, stop them before they go too far. Oda hasn't shown us that much of all the other situations where the pirates, where the Straw Hats don't show up to stop the evil pirates, and the Marines don't show up to stop the evil pirates, But Oda does go out of his way to show us situations like Ohara, where it's like, oh my god, the genocide, right? Oda just tells us a lot that pirates commit more genocides more frequently, but he doesn't show us that. Instead, he just shows us the world government at like Ohara or God Valley. So that's what sticks in our heads. I think Akainu would be a really good opportunity to show the other side that Oda's been trying to tell us about, but hasn't really wanted to follow through on. Empty Mind, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 8 months, man. I will never understand how you rated God Valley so high, yet was so critical on Wano. I reread God Valley and it's too fast/rushed. Story-wise, it's solid, but One Piece is a battle shonen in which it lacked heavily. They're two really different things, because like Wano's a whole-ass arc. God Valley's just a flashback, right? So it's totally different in terms of expectations of fights, right? And I would just say that God Valley's, I don't even view God Valley as just God Valley. It's the whole story, right? Because it's actually the Loki, Rocks, and Herald flashback. So it's covering everything. I think character writing wise, it handled the number of characters it had appropriately. I think it had phenomenal character writing for Rocks, phenomenal character writing for Herald, and really great character writing for Loki. I think it wove all three of those tales together really, really well. I think it hit us with a ton of crazy lore surprises. I think it hit us with some strong emotional moments. I think it really changed our views on a lot of One Piece characters in general. It had phenomenal character writing for fucking Dragon. It set up the origins of Blackbeard and Shanks' storyline really, really well. It just did pretty much everything as well as you could hope for, except for the fight between Roger, Garp, and Rocks. I think it did everything really well except for that. That was disappointing, but it was still fine, but it was somewhat underwhelming, right? I would much rather that than a storyline like Wano, where I would say the fights were good, and then everything else, plot-wise, character-wise, drama, emotion, all of that was terrible, right? So I view it as the reverse. And then the last thing I'd say with God Valley is that, like, while I was disappointed with the fights during it and some of the payoffs during it, looking at it as a piece of the broader Elbaf arc, the difference is that it's pretty clear now that God Valley was just a teaser for like I wouldn't be surprised if the climax of Elbaf is on a totally different scale than God Valley at this point. Like we're already dealing with like as soon as Oda kind of made it clear that Loki is significantly above the old gen, right? Like defeating or at least being equal to Amped Herald and everything like that, and that was like 14 years ago. It kind of became clear that God Valley, which I assumed was going to be like the main event of this, like the most exciting event of this arc, ultimately it doesn't matter as much because like the main event is really going to be this showdown with Emu. So like God Valley was just a preview of like what a battle with Emu looks like compared to what the end of Elbaf is going to look like. So in that sense, while I was disappointed in the moment that God Valley didn't live up to like what I would have hoped for with that fight, now I'm realizing that that's because it's a teaser for a bigger fight that's happening in Elbaf, so I don't mind as much personally. Muklatan, thanks for the 2. Akainu strikes me as a child conqueror. I don't know. If he was, then Akainu, he must have turned that shit off while fighting Aokiji, you know? Because otherwise Aokiji would have just been dead. All right. Imran Abdur Rahman, thanks for the 5. Cheap Suits has a pretty good video on Emu and Toki being the same person awakened. I'd be interested to see if you can disprove it or what you think. I mean, I might check that out. That's insane if that's the case. I'd actually... That'd be fucking insane if that actually turned out to be the case. I don't know. Taptio Treviso, thanks for the 2. I think Akainu was born to a pirate family or home. I think Akainu was born to a pirate family or home. Oh, that'd be interesting. That'd be an interesting spin. Julian Reed, thanks for the 5. Big Mom, question mark, Kaido, question mark. I think Oda has shown us plenty of how pirates can be evil. Can't be too much worse than enslaving countries. Kaido rules Wano for 20 years. Yeah, I think that's the big... So, you know what's funny? Even when I bring up in videos and stuff, like, pirates do slavery the same as the fucking Celestial Dragon. Because, like, people hone in on Celestial Dragons, like slavery, etc. And it's like, pirates do that too. Like, Kaido just did that to all of Wano country. Those are things I feel like I have to remind people of, that Kaido enslaved the nation, right? The simple difference, I would say, is that we get to dig in a lot more with the Celestial Dragon's evils, right? So, like, Ohara is just a very vivid memory in people's minds, right? Ohara is just a very vivid and clear memory. And, like, God Valley also feels like a very vivid and clear memory where it feels like Oda digs in a lot into showing the evil and the murder and the slaves and the genocide, right? When I mention, like you almost have to, what I've found is you almost have to remind people that Kaido enslaved the people of Wano. You almost have to remind people that happened. I almost have to remind people that, oh yeah, the Beast Pirates nearly genocided all of Zou. Again, part of that is because the Straw Hats came in and saved the day, right? The Straw Hats came in and saved Zou, so, like, our general like, it'd be very different if Oda wrote an arc where just, like, pirates successfully murder everybody on an island, right? Even moments like Pinkbeard showing up in chapter 904 and nearly overrunning the village, presumably raping, pillaging, all of that stuff, you get stopped by the revolutionaries, right? Pirates are frequently, I'm going to circle back to Wano in a second, but I'd say pirates are frequently throughout the story portrayed as basically like, it's kind of like, you know, in superhero stories where like, the bad guys that show up, but it's okay. Like, ultimately, the Rhino didn't murder, you know, like an entire city block because Spider-Man stopped him, right? It's very different when the full extent of evil is stopped before it gets too far, usually by our heroes, right? Whereas throughout One Piece, generally speaking, the Celestial Dragon's actions are shown in full detail, particularly in flashbacks like Ohara or God Valley recently, or even like Law's, you know, White Town, stuff like that. Like, Oda likes to show the full follow through of that, right? Or like fucking Kuma's backstory, right? Like, we just see Kuma's backstory doesn't end with like his dad and mom being freed. It ends with them being killed, you know? So in that sense, generally speaking, Oda shows us the full follow-through of Celestial Dragon's actions, whereas pirates were generally shown things being saved, right? Even in Wano, we do get glimpses of, like, the slavery and enslavement of the people of Wano, but a lot of it is in the context of like Luffy saving them, yada yada, right? And then the big thing, right? The big thing with the Wano situation is that Oda then goes on to show Kaido as a very morally nuanced character. Kaido is still terrible and an asshole, but he does lots of honorable things, surprisingly. Like, he regrets the way things went with Odin. He has respect for Luffy over the course of their battle. He doesn't want to cheat to win. He shows some sort of old school honor, in a sense, right? So I think when a lot of people think of Kaido first and foremost, they don't think of someone as evil as Saint Charlos, right? It's similar shit. Kaido's still fucking enslaving countless people, right? But you don't think of Kaido as evil as Saint Charlos because Oda shows a more morally nuanced character there, right? I would love for Oda to do an arc or like showcase us something like Ohara, but just have pirates do it and have them do it all the way, right? Because we've been told over and over that pirates do that, right? You can go back to Marco's explanation in chapter 909 or whatever. Like he talks about this. We've seen this in plenty of it's been implied over and over that like, yeah, like if the Straughts didn't stop the Dawn Creek pirates, that's what they would do. If they didn't stop the Black Cat pirates, that's what they would do. We were told that the Big Mom pirates would literally like genocide all the fishmen if they didn't pay up the sweets. We nearly got the minks completely wiped out, right? But they don't quite happen, right? Everything gets solved, everything gets saved. So it's still that sense of like, Doc Ock got foiled by Spider-Man, you know? Like, that's the sort of vibe that keeps happening with pirates. I would love for Oda to just show it all the way through and give us some pirates that aren't morally nuanced, like Kaido, you know? I don't even think it's fair to say Kaido's morally nuanced, but just a lot of stuff Oda does with Kaido's writing makes him feel like a more badass, honorable character, such that you almost... I don't think that the first thing that comes up to people's minds when you say the word Kaido is, enslaved a bunch of innocent people, like a slaver. I don't think slaver is the first thing that comes up in Kaido. Like, Kaido's PR is so good that fucking badass, biggest tank, like honor, stuff like that. That stuff is front of mind more than the slavery. Whereas someone like St. Charlos, because he's fucking giggling about slavery all the time, that's like the first thing that comes up, right? It really shouldn't. But that's kind of how Oda's played it throughout the story, right? Kaido's just as bad as St. Charlos. They're not that different. OP fans give everyone who's in Celestial Dragon a free pass. Yeah, and I think Oda is going to... Like, I think the Kainu backstory is a great opportunity to show, like... Just show the pirates as they are without the Straughts coming to save the day and without some honor bullshit. Because Pinkbeard's not honorable, right? Just because you played that situation for comedy in the end doesn't change the fact that Pinkbeard and his crew would have Ohara'd Lulusia if, the revolutionaries didn't show up. Jack and his crew would have Ohara'd Zoe if the Straughts didn't show up, Random guy, thanks to 5. How will Oda manage to balance writing the amount of flashbacks left to tell in the final war? Void Sentry, Shanks, Blackbeard, Akainu. I think he's done a phenomenal job so far because the God Valley flashback was slipped in way earlier than I thought. I think everybody was shocked when Rox showed up during Loki's flashback. Everybody was shocked. And then as the story started to progress and we're like, wait, we're actually getting God Valley here? That was mind-blowing. So I think the fact that I think what Oda's kind of doing so far is that like some major event flashbacks that we've needed to get for some time, he's dropping them in surprisingly in the center of big arcs. So like Roger's journey to Laugh-Tale, I don't think people thought we were going to get that in Wano, but that flashback actually got inserted into Wano. The God Valley flashback, I don't think people thought that we were going to get that over the course of Elbaf. People might have thought like when we cut away to Elbaf, a lot of people thought that that Blackbeard and Garp might be showing us that flashback in their conversation or something. Some people even thought that Pudding's going to pull the memory out of Garp. But Oda just fit it seamlessly into Elbaf and plays perfectly into the storyline, right? So similarly, like, I think the Void Century flashback is the last big flashback that we need to get in the story, and that can be perfectly fit into the Final War. So then looking at the character flashbacks like Shanks, Blackbeard, and Akainu, funnily enough, I think Oda's been doing a good job sneaking those things in as well, woven into other flashbacks. So I would never have guessed that the God Valley flashback was also the Dragon flashback. We got the most important moment in Dragon's storyline as a character there, right? We can still learn how he met Luffy's mom and stuff, but like the origins of what made Dragon decide to fight against the world government, because like gain the values that he has, gain the goal and motivation that he has, shifted him away from his father's teachings, etc. All of that was slipped in really well into the God Valley flashback. So I'm just going to trust Oda that he's going to make things sync up and work together in ways that we're able to check off multiple boxes at once. Empty Mind, thanks for the 2. Funny to think that Magellan no diff 3 current Yonko. Yeah, Magellan's like the devil of the Yonko. That's really funny. Treble Keem, thanks for the 5. I feel like Emu gets a lot of unfair hate from Blackbeard fans. He, in my opinion, has the potential to be a much more compelling villain. I mean, potential, but Blackbeard's already, like, got a lot of it, you know? I don't think Emu's done or said or acted in any way yet that makes me feel like this is, like, a totally different type of villain in fiction that we've never seen some version of before, whereas Blackbeard has felt really different from the get-go, from the opening scene, you know? And, I mean, like, even just the little things that Oda's thought through, like, just differences in portrayal. Like, the first time we meet Blackbeard, it's just as him as this random, seemingly homeless guy in a bar, right? And then the first time that we meet Emu is him sitting on the holy throne of all thrones at the top of the world above everybody else. Like, it could not be more night and day different. That's why I do think Blackbeard would be the more interesting villain at the end of the day. But just the parallels Oda's been doing between the two characters is just, like, so well thought out. It's crazy. All right, everybody. I am really hungry. I do want to revisit this conversation after this new chapter comes out, but I don't want to get into it too much here. Oh, Mr. Super. Sorry, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Oh, Ariandel, thanks for the 2. Is Kizaru versus Kobe or Kobe versus Aokiji thematically viable? I feel like Kobe and Aokiji are... I don't think... I mean, Kobe versus Kizaru, that could be really cool. I think Kobe versus Aokiji would not be, because low-key, it's not like Aokiji's the bad disciple and Kobe's the good disciple. What Garp doesn't realize is that Aokiji is actually, like, on his way to doing good stuff. It's just that Garp doesn't understand it at the moment, you know? So Aokiji versus Kobe, it would be disciple versus disciple, but it's not. It's more like good disciple versus good disciple at the end of the day. Aokiji just doesn't understand, or Garp doesn't understand that Aokiji's kind of seen the light, you know? And that Aokiji's ulterior motives for being with the Blackbeard Pirates, you know? All right, everybody. Make next Monday a part 2, same thumbnail. I might do that just because it's, you know, now it's, now we're, I think after this chapter, we're going to have a lot more meat to discuss. So, sorry, I'm not used to spoilers coming out so early. That's usually why we do the streams on Tuesdays, because it's the last chance before spoilers. But, you know, this seems like a really hyped chapter. And then just a reminder for everybody. You can still, the deal is still up, but Loki is about to leave the store, so you can only get him March only, and you can buy any 2 posters from any collection and get 3 free. So you can buy character posters, or you can buy island posters or ships posters, or mix and match them however. But this is the last day essentially that Loki is going to be available. So get him while you can, and then get yourself 4 more posters while you're at it, and just take advantage of the buy 2 get 3 deal that we got running. And is there one more comment here? Hold on. Okay, I think we're good. All right, everybody. Thank you all.